Today, Watkins Glen hosts round 7 of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS season, as the championship picture starts to come into focus. K-Pax Racing is looking to continue a streak of pro-class victories that started at this venue 1 year ago with the #1 entry of Michele Beretta and Andrea Caldarelli, which is due to start on pole here today. In Pro-Am, 4 different crews have won races this season, with at least that many still in the championship hunt as the season approaches its halfway mark. Hello everyone, welcome to Watkins Glen, an iconic circuit in North American racing. It is a pleasure to have you along for the ride. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish joins me. Amanda Busick is down on that grid, which is full of some fantastic GT3 machinery. Calvin, we're about ready to go at one of the great venues on the continent.
Yeah, and it promises to be a scorcher in more ways than one. We've got ambient temperatures up in the mid-90s this afternoon. That could play a factor into these race cars, how they operate. Managing tires will be a huge potential issue here today because it's a high-energy racetrack. The loads here are immense. There's so much grip here. They literally fly through some of these corners. So how you set the cars up to deal with that over the course of a long 40 to 50-minute run with the driver change and pit stop in the middle, Brian, is going to be really critical today.
It is an awesome place. And let's get a first-hand look around Watkins Glen, all 11 turns and 3.37 miles of it with our track preview.
Hi, I'm Michael. Here's a lap of Watkins Glen International Raceway. Going down into turn 1, looking for the 200 board for braking. Rolling a lot of speed because there's a camber in the road here. Back on power, up to 3rd gear. Now we're looking up to the climbing S's. Over 200 kilometers an hour here going up the hill. Back to the left to completely blind, but it's full throttle on our Acura NSX GT3. A lot of time to think about the lap here and how we're going to attack it going forward. So next corner is the bus stop, and we're looking for the 300 board for the braking. Carry a lot of speed over these curbs, just basically jumping them in the NSX. Back into the carousel immediately. 4th gear corner, super quick. On power on the exit. Going back down the hill into turn 6. Really late braking here. Try and get the car set up for the exit. Back on power, picking up grip going down the hill. A lot of grip in this next corner going uphill into turn 7. Brake really late, down to 2nd gear, turn the car, and back on power up the hill. A lot of hills and elevation change here at Watkins Glen International Raceway. Going into turn 8, really hard braking after the 200 board. Just throw the car in here and let it slide a little bit and back on power on the exit. Next turn's turn 9, going up over the crest, try and get the car in tight, but get a little free here and have to catch the car a little bit. And they run out right to the wall. Next, turn 10, super fast, left-hand corner. Use all the road on the exit. And now coming into the last corner here, turn 11, down to 3rd gear, quick entry, and then again, right up to the wall on the exit. And that's a lap at Watkins Glen International Raceway.
Great tour of this New York track with a New York native, Michael Cooper, with Real Time Racing. He shares that car with Erin Vogel. She'll be getting the start here today. Unfortunately, not a great weekend so far for them, and it got a little bit worse with a penalty after qualifying, and they will start from the 17th and final starting position. Some other late breaking news to report. It was supposed to be an 18-car grid. Unfortunately, bad luck for the Ian Lacey Racing team. A fuel cell issue on their Aston Martin, and they don't have a spare, and we're told they've been forced to withdraw from the weekend, so we won't get to see Drew Stavely or Frank Gannett here this weekend.
And that's a great shame because they've really been making some strides with that Aston Martin chassis and really felt a lot of confidence coming into this weekend. And getting back to the penalty for the real-time machine, that was from the incident that Michael Cooper had at VIR when he lost his brakes and unfortunately took out Madison Snow, but they had to push that penalty forward to the race and starting position here this weekend.
Let's check in with the 3rd member of the broadcast crew, and a nice welcome to Amanda Busick. Good afternoon, Amanda.
Guys, and a welcome back to Windward Racing. This is the first time we've seen this duo since Sonoma when they...
Apologies for that. Apparently a technical snafu. She'll work through that, and hopefully we'll hear from Amanda. And it looked like Philip Ellis was set to join her. I think what she was talking about was the fact that it's the first time we've seen Windward Racing in this championship since the season opener at Sonoma. Talk about a team that's had some bad luck this season. The hits just kept on coming in multiple championships, and that's really affected their SRO program.
It really has, but I mean, they've got remarkable resolve, that group, and I spoke to Bryce Ward recently about a couple of near misses that they've had in terms of winning races, and they just they keep rolling. They just focus forward, and I love the attitude of that group. I think they'll have another solid day here today.
Well, the good news for them is it's been a successful return so far. Russell Ward had a great qualifying effort. He'll start on the outside of the front row for Windward Racing. Alongside this car, Michele Beretta with the overall pole in qualifying earlier this morning for race 1, but his co-driver and reigning champion, Andrea Caldarelli, not so lucky in the qualifying session for race 2. They'll start all the way back in 9th tomorrow, and the K-Pax team told Amanda earlier today, we've been struggling with straight line speed on this car specifically, starting at VIR, and the worst part is they can't figure out why.
Yeah, it's really had them scratching their heads, and they've tried everything. Spoke to Thomas Blum yesterday, who's the strategist there at K-Pax, and he said we just can't quite figure things out. But nonetheless, Beretta puts the car on the pole for this race. But you know, when Caldarelli gets in the car, looking at how he qualified against all of the pros here this morning, he's going to have his hands full. So they've got to have perfect execution. Track position is so vital with these GT3 cars, and getting that car out front in the clean air. Can he hang on? He's been unbeaten this year, but this may be his toughest test yet.
Well, he's been unbeaten going back to the tail end of last season, starting here at Watkins Glen, if you exclude the Indianapolis 8-hour where they did not run for North American points. But if you look at simply the last 10 90-minute races, the traditional race format over the last couple of years, yeah, they've had a remarkable win streak in that stretch. So, yeah, the car to keep an eye on, but perhaps one that is not firing figuratively on all cylinders. We don't think it's an engine issue, but just not quite there on the pace. George Kurtz, we saw him come through the picture in the CrowdStrike Mercedes just a moment ago. It's been a good day for him. 2 poles in the pair of different championships, Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS, as well as GT America powered by AWS. He already won his race in GT America, and he is going to start this car in the 4th overall position, right behind these two, Michele Beretta and Russell Ward. That's the front row on the grid for race 1 of the weekend. The second row belongs to Stephen Agacani. His co-driver Loris Spinelli qualified on pole by 0.6 of a second for race 2 tomorrow. Keep an eye on that US Racetronics Mercedes. George Kurtz and another Mercedes AMG GT3 will be alongside. Then you drop back to row 3. That's where you'll find a pair of Pro Class cars, Michael Dinan and Misha Goldberg from Turner Motorsport and K-Pax Racing, respectively, make up that 3rd row of the grid. Back to row 4, Chandler Hull for Bimmer World. He'll be sharing that car with BMW legend Bill Auberlen and Scott Smithson. He and Brian Sellers, they've been scratching their heads somewhat this weekend, but did appear to take a step forward in qualifying. They will start 8th overall. Row 5 sees Onofrio Triarci in the lone AM-class entry on site here this weekend. They, of course, unfortunately unable to be here after that heavy incident at VIR in the last round of the championship. And Ashton Harrison will start alongside in the Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Jason Harward starts 11th. He'll have Charlie Luck next to him. That Luck car, driven by Jan Heylen, in addition to Luck, has been very quick this weekend. It might be one to watch moving forward in this race. David Askew and Justin Wetherill are in row number 7 for DXDT Racing and Triarci Competizione, respectively. Jeff Burton and newcomer PJ Hyatt, more on that story as we go, make up row 8. And as mentioned, Aaron Vogel, after the penalty following qualifying for real-time racing, will start at the back of the 17-car field. It's a jumbled grid. You look at the order for race 1 and the qualifying order for race 2, and they look pretty different, it has to be said. So we should be in store for a fun race today.
I think we should, and I think this car here, this car has massive potential. I mean, Laura Spinelli, Stephen Agacani's teammate, claimed pole position here this morning amongst the pros. A spectacular lap. So the car has monster pace. I'm not sure Stephen totally executed. He's feeling a bit under the weather this weekend with his qualifying run. He's got strep throat, said, I'll be okay, but in these heating conditions, that is a concern. But he would love to get ahead of the other Mercedes on the front row, starting by Russell Ward, maybe put some pressure on, keep him his car close to Beretta. I think that's going to be the key to success here this afternoon. Give Laura Spinelli an opportunity to go after that #1 Lamborghini. And we know when that happens, Laura Spinelli and Andrea Caldarelli, they come from a similar part of Italy, but there's not a lot of love lost between those two, so that should be a fascinating battle if it plays out that way.
Definitely so, as the field starts to come into 2x2 alignment for Spinelli and Agacani, that U.S. Racetronics team. They have been contenders in every race so far this season. They do have 3 podiums, that's the good news. But how many race wins might they have, if not for a few little issues here or there?
They've been monstrous in terms of their speed, and I know they're learning. I'm sure they're frustrated by some of the little things that have happened during race conditions, but today's a new day. Maybe they can bring it home.
Here we go, 90 minutes the race distance, mandatory pit stop just around the halfway mark within a 10-minute prescribed window. The AMs in the Pro-Am cars to start. The pros will take over for the second stint. And on that front row, the all-dominant car in this championship, Michele Beretta for K-Pax Racing. That's that black Lamborghini on the left-hand side of the screen. Russell Ward and Windward Racing in their return to the series starts on the outside of the front row. Into the VP acceleration zone, waiting for the green flag. Tom Hansing, the flagman, waiting for that moment. Now we see the Lamborghini step on the power. The green flag waves. We are racing, and it's U.S. Racetronics jumping up into that second spot. Agacani doing exactly what you said he'd want to do.
Yeah, he did. There's a little concertina effect there with Beretta kind of waiting to the last moment to go. Almost caught out some of the drivers. Dynan had to take evasive action. Misha Goldberg poked his nose down the middle. I'm sure the stewards will be looking at that, but watch for Dynan. He's going to get a monster tow here towards the inner loop, running in third position.
His first sector of the track is really good for the BMW M4 GT3, and he's putting those ponies to work for him. Going around the outside in the BMW for Turner. Can Agacani hang on? No, he cannot. Sweeping across his bow, Dynan's up to P2.
Wow, we've seen it so many times by Michael Tynan, and he has the confidence this year to really lay it all on the line. Relatively cold tires, pressures aren't where they need to be, but he has monstrous opening laps this season.
He jumps up to the second spot from all the way back in 5th on the grid. What a great start for the young American.
Big loser there is Russell Ward. They'll be frustrated without the Windward Racing machine. He looks to the inside of Agacani there as they enter the toe of the boot.
Big question mark over Dynan. The BMW, it seems like the single lap pace is okay, but the tire wear, specifically at the front of the car, has been an issue for a few of the BMW teams. Can he maintain that pace without wearing off the tires? And a problem here, Jeff Burton has gone around and appears to be high-sided on top of those curbs.
Wow, what a rough day for Jeff. Had a crash here in qualifying, exiting the boot this morning right at that corner there in the backdrop there. That's turn 9. Now he's had a quick loop here. I'm not sure it was any argy-bargy in terms of racing side by side with someone. Maybe he got turned, but nonetheless, he's not facing in the right direction.
No, frustrating day for Jeff, and that incident as we go full course yellow meant that they have to use their GT America chassis in both GT America and Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. That's not an ideal set of circumstances. The good news is it did not look like there was any contact of significance with the barrier based on the shot of the car, at least. So hopefully it's something where he can get that car righted and rejoin without losing much other than some track position. I'll tell you who might be licking his chops right now. That's good news here as Burton is going again. Michael Dynan, as good as he is on starts and restarts, this is falling right into his lap.
I'm with you. And we talk about that #1 Lamborghini Huracan from K-Pax having some straight line speed concerns. Well, the BMW doesn't seem to have that, and he's going to pop the big draft. If he gets a nice clean run, he may take a look down the inside for turn 1, but settle back in. Just thinking ahead here, just really focus on getting a run up through the S's and maybe doing what he did, like a cut and paste move to what he did on Agacani could be on the cards.
How many times did we see him do it last year, albeit in the old M6 chassis, but it seems like a lot of that carries over to this new M4. And it was exactly what we've come to expect from Michael. He is not afraid to attack even when tire temperature, tire pressure might not be exactly at their ideal.
No, he's just got that personality. He's got that sort of brusqueness about him that he's willing to put it on the line. He's not intimidated. He recognizes he's driving around other drivers at times who have a ton more experience than him and maybe a little bit more racecraft, but that doesn't matter. If he's got an edge, he's going to try and use it and gain that track position.
Dinan and his co-driver Robbie Foley had their best weekend of the season with a pair of second-place finishes in the pro class. That was at VIR just over a month ago. The BMW team here with Bimmer World and Chandler Hull, who runs first in that class, 6th overall. Ashton Harrison has jumped up 3 spots and now runs 3rd. The big loser on the initial start appears to be George Kurtz, who was the pole sitter in that class. He started 4th overall. He now runs back in 8th overall and has dropped to 3rd in Pro-Am.
Yeah, a couple of the Mercedes. We talked about Russell Ward, who started on the front row. He's been bumped down to 4th here in the early going, and the same thing for our pole sitter in Pro-Am, as you alluded to. George Kurtz coming off a victory just an hour ago, and tasted champagne. Get refocused here and try and get back into his rhythm. They know they've got potential here for a Pro-Am victory. They're the Pro-Am championship leaders coming off the back of a victory at VIR. Very much hitting their stride.
And it seems that way, that's for sure. George at the top of his game, and he's going to be a busy guy racing here this weekend, hopping on a plane, going over to Belgium for the Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa. And there's a lot of track time even before you get to the race at that event, but he loves it. He loves his motorsport, and that event in particular. He's done that one a few times, and we heard from him earlier today in qualifying, and he's really keen to get back.
Yeah, big full crowds there this year. It's a monstrous event, really just a showcase for GT3 cars on the global scale. And 65 cars, I think, is the entry this year. And we've got 9 of our drivers who are competing here today going to be going over alongside George Kurtz. You've got Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper, Michael Dinan, Foley, Ellis, Ward, Spinelli, Beretta, and also Samantha Tan. Altoe will be there as well, who typically run with us, but not this particular weekend. So big presence from our championship. Looking forward to seeing how everyone does. A couple of teams as well. K-Pax and Heart of Racing have a GT3 entry there as well, running in GT4 competition here this weekend. But the Heart of Racing team, led by Ian James, will be over there with some of his drivers.
Exactly. For K-Pax, it's not a first time for them. They've been there before. Thomas Blom has been there back when K-Pax was Bentley affiliated. Bentley brought him over to call strategy on one of their factory cars. It was in 2019. I remember seeing him over there. So, yeah, it's huge, and it's all part of this growing global SRO family with Fanatec GT World Challenge Series on 4 different continents. So the Asian Championship, they raced last weekend in Suzuka. The brand new Japan Cup got started as a championship within a championship there. And they're at Fuji this weekend, all scoring points towards the same manufacturer's championship. Same can be said for the Australian Championship that's now under SRO leadership. Of course, GT World Challenge Europe, both the Sprint and Endurance Cups, and what we're doing here in America. And then you have some associated championships like British GT, which is racing this weekend at Spa. So much GT3 racing, so much SRO involvement, of course, in that. And the great news for the fan at home, you could find it all on GT World. So thanks for joining us.
Look at Michael Dinan. He is up on the wheel, ready to go. He's just waiting for that Lamborghini to accelerate and try and go with him. He's playing the game. Now he goes.
And Dinan goes with him. A little bit of a bobble there as the tires still are coming up to temperature. And Beretta knows he might be vulnerable. Look how defensive he goes in the run down to turn 1. Dinan sweeping to the outside. Backs out of it. Now looking to get that run through the S's.
Backs out of it, gets that big wide approach. May have backed out of it a little bit too much and gave Beretta potentially enough of a gap, but now he's picking up the draft. This could be perfect timing here.
Look at that big BMW M4 GT3 looming right behind the Lamborghini. Can he time this run? Can Michael Dinan vault Turner to the point? For now, Beretta has the answers, and he'll hold his ground. Beretta holds the lead. That was Harrison making an aggressive move, looking to the inside of Hull. That's for the lead in Pro-Am.
Yeah, drop wheels there, I think, on the approach to the inner loop there. Managed to keep it all together. That could have been a big one at those sort of speeds. They're touching about 165 miles an hour there.
Chandler Hull was able to cover that off. He still leads. That's the white and blue BMW right ahead of the red Acura. of Ashton Harrison. She and Mario Farnbacher, they have been so good this season. Not a great qualifying effort earlier today for either of the races, but running very strong right now in the second spot, chasing down the BMW.
Little twitch there for Hull there as he comes through turn 7, gets out a little bit wide, has to go defensive on the run, down towards the braking for the heel.
This is the boot section of the track.
Ashton
Harrison dove to the inside, yeah. Did she get the move made? Yes, she did. And now George Kurtz smelling blood in the water. He wants to go at Chandler Hall. How about Charlie Luck looking racy? He's trying to make a move on Kurtz.
Yeah, big consequences here as it all sort of stacks up. Ashton very brave on the brakes, but that was really set up by Chandler just getting a little bit loose, putting the power down, coming off of turn 7. His car looks to be a bit of a handful. He's got an issue on the tail end of the car. Look, the tail has come up. I bet it's hurting the downforce, and he's struggling with that car right now.
George Kurtz now to the inside of Hull in the fight for second in Pro-Am. A wounded BMW falling victim first to the Acura of Harrison, now to the Mercedes of Kurtz. Does look like he got a nice run out of turn 1, and this BMW should be quick through this section of the track, but this car is carrying that damage. Oh, and Goikberg's off the pace.
Big time. That's not great news for his teammate Jordan Pepper, of course, as he got a cut down tire. Seems to be weaving around a little bit as he's coming up the straightaway now.
His team did do some testing here and came away a little bit concerned about tire wear. They made some changes to accommodate for that, and they felt like it was all good. Not sure if this was tire related or not, but Goikberg with dramas early in this race.
Not sure BMW tested this new M4 with that configuration aero-wise, but he's hanging on to it. But I think it's really hurting his downforce and how that air is effective around the rear wing.
Yeah, that's cost him another spot. Charlie Luck now has gotten through on Chandler Hall. Just looking at his hands, he does look fairly busy in the cockpit. Back out in front, Beretta leads, Dine in second. It's Agakani and Ward third and fourth. Let's hear from the pit lane and Amanda.
Well, in addition to the battles that are happening on track, the other thing that drivers are going to battle here this weekend is the heat. I'm standing by with Philip Ellis, who has Pedialyte on standby ahead of his stint here today. It's the first time we've seen you guys since Sonoma. You're back here in action in SRO. You said something brilliant about this track offline. What is it that you love about Watkins Glen?
I think the best part about it is it's so smooth. It's probably the smoothest you guys have in America. So it's a great track to race on. You don't have a lot of tire deck. Which is an up and a down. On high tire deck tracks, you usually have exciting racing as well. But at least here you don't have to take as much care of the tire. You can push it pretty hard, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
I know you've been standing by with me for this interview. Are there any early thoughts from this race so far?
I think we didn't have the greatest of starts so far, so it'll be hard to hustle up back to the front. But qualifying went pretty well, starting P2 now today's race, third tomorrow. So I think we have a good long-run pace, and yeah, it'll be difficult to pass others, of course, like it always is, but we should have a good car.
Thank you, Philip.
While we were away, we go safety car for the second time. We believe it's for the ailing car of Misha Goikberg, but we are awaiting confirmation of that. But safety car for the second time in just 12 minutes.
Yeah, and that's certainly going to change the complexion of this race a little bit. Let's look up ahead. You can see Goikberg going very slowly through the S's, and you're really threading the needle there, so it's hard to get out of the way. A pretty scary moment for the drivers coming up on him. Like the car was moving around a lot, so that's why I thought there's a potential tire issue, but I don't see anything that's low either on any of the corners of the car.
Now the K-Pax crew, they will go to work. And if it's something that can be fixed, they will do so. That's disappointing. This lineup of Goikberg and Pepper just maybe a step behind the sister car.
Yeah, not going to the tires. They're going straight to the engine bay. Maybe something on the right bank of the engine there. Bit of disappointment. I mean, Jordan Pepper was quicker than his teammate Caldarelli in qualifying for tomorrow's race, who certainly thought they had an opportunity here this weekend. That will not be affected by their performance here today, because you have separate qualifying sessions for each race. It's not your fastest lap like we have in some of the other classes here this weekend. Teams not seeing anything, they'll plug in the laptop, see if they can find out from the Lamborghini engineers there on site.
I think we got a replay that might tell us a little bit more. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not supposed to look like that.
Looks cool.
Yeah.
Well, hot. Catch my drift. But not what the K-Pax boys were hoping for. They've got the laptop plugged in. And looks like we're about to go green channel. Cole, I believe, is headed towards the pit lane with that bodywork damage at the back of that car. Yes, indeed, he is diving towards the pits. Here's another chance for Michael Dinan to do what he does best on the restart. This time stays line astern with the K-Pax car on board here with Hull, who's headed towards the pit lane. But Dinan, I'm sure, looking to line up that move on Beretta.
Yeah, and that's really going to be key, how he times that run up through the S's. There we see the bodywork issue with the deck lid essentially out of position. But for Beretta, I think he actually timed the run up the hill and maybe lifted off a little bit to not allow Dinan to run. He doesn't do it this time, but he's got that inside lane. Look behind him, Ashton Harrison looking for a way by Russell Ward there for P4.
That was for P4 overall, but that is not for class position. Harrison is the leader in Pro-Am. Kurt's now second, Luck is third. On board we go. This is Stephen Agakani, who's running behind Dinan, taking a peek at the inside there.
Onboard action here. Looking at the drivers have to fight these cars through these turns. Massive grip. Just did a wonderful job. Now side by side, Russell Ward to the outside. This is through turn 7, the toe of the boot. Gives him a little bit of racing room. The Mercedes going side by side for P3.
Couple of young Americans who are earning some respect in the world of sports car racing, going wheel to wheel through the boot at Watkins Glen. No quarter given, no quarter asked between these two.
Yeah, key's going to be track limits there. Was Russell Ward able to make that move? He should be to the inside there. That is the position being taken. Did he run outside the boundary? Turn 1, turn 8, turn 10. The corners they're keeping an eye on here this weekend.
Philip Ellis is going to love that. That means a little less work for him to do when his stint starts. He said it's not going to be easy to move forward, but Russell Ward able to recover at least one of the spots he lost at the start.
Yeah, determined rebound here for Russell Ward. I'm sure he's a bit frustrated with that initial start. Wants to try and correct that and keep this car very much in the mix. Now he's a little bit wide there. Agakani, big deep lunge down into turn 1. Said he'd been really working with his braking point there this weekend, trying to find out where the limit and extreme is. Ran here in other competition, which didn't give you as much flexibility up and over the curb. He said, I've had to adjust my braking point, went too far, a little bit left P2, but learning as he's going.
Native of Los Angeles, California. Burst onto the scene as a very young man, driving around in a GT3 car in his early teens. Did a lot of racing in Europe, primarily Lamborghini, single make racing, but has stepped into GT3 racing. The Mercedes brand has been very strong in his debut full season of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, running 4th right now in the pro class. This is the leader in Pro-Am. Team out of Florida, Racers Edge Motorsports. How much of a powerhouse have they turned into over the past several years?
Yeah, just really great to see John Meraki take that relatively small team and be doing great things in GT3 competition. So much success over the years, a couple of championships. Had a big year with Dane Cameron as well. Didn't quite secure the driver's title because Dane had 2 different co-drivers that year that dropped him as a pro out of the potential for a championship win, but had more wins than anyone else. And big year so far this year. Win, couple of runner-up finishes. Didn't have the best of runs of VIR. Got wrapped up in that turn race 1 incident, which cost them dearly in the points, but rebounding here nicely. Ashton's had a great start to this race.
We saw the issues that befell Misha Goikberg and the K-Pax racing team. Amanda has more on that story.
Well, as you can guys see here, they are working on this car. There's no decision if it's going to go back out or not. I did talk to Thomas Blom about what the issue might be. Said that the car was misfiring on several cylinders, simply lost power into a couple of cylinders. They're turning the car on and off right now. The computer is hooked up. They're looking at data. I did see Jordan Pepper talk to him a little bit. You know, he's understandably bummed. But that's the update on the 3. We did find out in qualifying that the #1 Lambo, the black Lambo, it's actually been struggling with top speed as well. So if some of the laps look off pace here today, they've been chasing this issue since VIR actually.
Maybe Maybe so, but so far it's been a good start here for Michele Beretta, who has not just the lead, but the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race to this point, a 46.5, and a 1.2 second lead over Dynan. And Dynan is starting to fall back now into the clutches of Russell Ward. And that Windward Mercedes running just behind the Turner BMW.
Yeah, the BMW teams here this weekend have just said we just don't seem to have the pace. We're not sure what it is. The car's balance isn't ideal. They're struggling with a bit of understeer, which they've gradually improved, but not to the point that they've really got the sharpness in pace of some of the fastest cars. They certainly look at what Laura Spinelli did in qualifying this morning, said we can't even get close to that. So it's all about damage limitation. Had a couple of runner-up finishes at the last round of the championship. So try and keep digging. Robbie Foley's didn't do the best job he can do, but great start by Michael Dynan here, getting the car up to P2. And here's the other one on the rebound, back in the pit lane. They didn't get that job done. Got the duct tape on there. That was not enough. It's going to be tested immediately.
He didn't go a lap down, but I'm afraid he's about to. I think he's going to need to come back to the pits to make sure that repair sticks this time. Really a bummer, because Chandler Hull did what he needed to do in qualifying and at the start of the race too. We talked about it some earlier. Bill Oberlin said, frankly, this might not be our weekend. I'll do what I can to keep us in the mix, but it's going to come down to Chandler to make the difference against the other AMs in the Pro-Am lineups. And he was doing that when something very strange, frankly, happened with that rear deck lid.
Yeah, and it's race one where Chandler qualifies, where they have that best opportunity, because you got the track position and Billy's still got to defend it. Tomorrow, he's got to go on the attack. Didn't qualify that well for his race tomorrow, so it's going to be a tougher order for him.
Fight is on for the lead in Pro-Am, with Ashton Harrison holding on to that spot. George Kurtz right behind, the class pole sitter, already a winner today in GT America, powered by AWS.
George has had quite the workout already today, right? 2 qualifying sessions, 40-minute GT America run, and now in the first stint here today. But busy time, heads over to Spa, as you mentioned earlier, Ryan, to do that race there, the 24-hour, and then immediately back to run Nashville. Busy summer month.
When we talk about what a workout it is 93 degrees Fahrenheit here in upstate New York. That is steaming hot. Not a ton of humidity, only 34%, but it's still going to be a workout in one of these GT3 cars. Now, many of them, with customer racing in mind, have some pretty stout air conditioning systems that you can choose to use, but that does come at a performance disadvantage.
It does, because the cockpit temperature really screams up there. 120, 130 is not uncommon, so utilizing either the air conditioning or some cool suits, but typically you're adding an ice chest. That's weight to the race car, and that's performance. So I was surprised. I mean, yesterday it was in mid-90s here, but it didn't feel that hot compared to what we've been dealing with this summer, Ryan. So I think that'll certainly be a benefit to the drivers, even though we are up into the 90s in terms of ambient temps.
How about for Ashton Harrison? What a season this has been for her. Ran the 12 Hours of Sebring in conjunction with Wayne Taylor Racing, as well as this Racer's Edge team. And showing that her victory in the North American portion of the Indianapolis 8-hour last year was no fluke. She has backed that up in a big way with the runs that she and Mario Farnbacher have put together.
We've said it many times already this year. She is the real deal. I mean, she is super strong in terms of performance. She is very detailed. She's a true professional. She puts the work in. She is dedicated to this sport. She's ingrained with the Wayne Taylor Racing organization through their affiliation with their family business, and being one of the partners with Wayne's team. Did a race at the Sebring 12-hour at the pro level, was running lap times within a second of some of the top pros. So she really has all the tools, all of the ingredients, but most importantly, she has the approach and the dedication that is necessary to compete at this level.
Graduate of the HPD GT3 Academy, that is in many ways the brainchild of John Meraki, the team owner at Racer's Edge. Chance to get lots of seat time in a GT3 car with some great coaching from Honda affiliated drivers. Did that last year, and that has served her well. She stepped into this car right on the pace since she debuted at Indy, going back to last season. Back at the front, Beretta's lead has grown, but only slightly, 1.5 seconds. Dynan seems to have settled into a rhythm, and Russell Ward looked like he was hounding Dynan a few laps ago, and maybe that's not quite the case so much anymore.
Yeah, certainly Michael looked like he's a little bit wide there through turn 1, got up in the curb a little bit through that, and here we see a big battle. Look at this. This is Aaron Vogel going up against David Askew down into the brake zone for the inner loop.
Former teammates here going side by side through the inner loop. Askew's not going to give that spot up easily.
Smithson's right there as well.
Yep, so Vogel, the meat in the DXDT Racing sandwich at the moment. And again, that is her former team that she left to go join Real Time along with Michael Cooper this year.
Yeah, rode with Erin down from Rochester the other evening on the way to our hotels and had a good chat with her. It hasn't been the easiest of seasons for them with the switch in teams and over to this Acura chassis. Said the car just doesn't give me the feel on the front end. It has a lot of powering assist with that Acura chassis, and she said I don't get the immediate feedback. But they did do a test following their big wreck at VIR, which Michael Cooper did. She was on the communication process from her home in California listening, and they really feel they found something with this chassis. Can't get the outright lap pace, but in race conditions they feel they're a lot more competitive, and she's showcasing that here today.
Scored the first class win for a female driver in this championship with a win last year in round 1 at VIR. And has had some good runs since then, a couple of podiums, a runner-up in the second race at Sebring last year. But this year, to your point, just hasn't had the field. Best finish of 5th. A few times this season. She's running 5th in class right now, but actually it's from the attacking position now to defense, it looks like, because Askew's been able to pull away a little bit, and that's brought Smithson into the picture.
She said, despite the frustration of not having the pace we were expecting, she said, I'm really enjoying the real-time team. Great bunch of guys, real racers. She likes the fact that they have all of the focus on that one-car operation, unlike when they ran with the team. Great team, they had multiple cars last year, so sometimes their focus was split. But there we see Nathan Bonneau, the team manager there, alongside her co-driver, Michael Cooper.
Tell you where that Acura looked strong. That was coming up through the S, and she was right there on Askew into the inner loop. Just wasn't quite close enough to make a move. He got balked a little bit, and that's brought Smithson to her rear wing. But now she's starting to power ahead and run down Askew, the driver owner of that DXDT Racing team.
14 minutes away from the pit window opening. Minimum stop time today is 71 seconds. That's from pit in to pit out, including the mandatory driver change and 4 tire change. A little bit of refueling as well. A little top up there. Plenty of time. Shouldn't be any issues unless you have one little bobble. Then suddenly the panic sets in, and you can't afford to give anything away in terms of being too far over that minimum time.
Oh, that's Jeff Burton. I thought I heard something in the background just a few moments ago. That is another heavy front-end impact for Jeff today. He crashed in qualifying for this race. This is the secondary car, and it looks decidedly second-hand. See Jeff
I'm not
moving
sure
around.
He's going anywhere. This could be another caution.
I think you're right, and that will wipe away what had grown to be a 2-second lead for Beretta. Look at all the fluid coming out of that car, too. Steam pouring off of the car. Steam probably pouring out of the ears of Jeff Burton as well. This has been a difficult day.
Yeah, lots of debris there, so should be just lost under braking. You can see the contact to the inside there, whether he's trying to make a move or whether the car just turned on him. Hopefully they can get out there and arrest that fluid that's making its way towards the racing surface. Right now it's in the runoff area.
I was just about to say that he had had a nice recovery from his spin. He had made his way up a couple of spots past PJ Hyatt on the previous lap.
This is great news for everyone other than Andrea Caldarelli. And this is the corner right there. You can see the tire marks that take you right over to that area. Trace it back. This with the baby blue Armco.
That Armco.
Big hit.
Has a big dent in it, yeah. Good to see the safety crew there talking to Jeff.
He dropped a left side wheel on the approach and fired him across. And we got forced on.
So this is interesting. This is Chandler Hull coming back to the pit, so he had not made a second stop. This yellow might allow them the Bimmer World team a chance to fix that damage on the back without losing the lap.
That'll fix it.
That is one method. Yep. That's cutting the Gordian knot right there.
And sometimes it amazes you. It just really indicates where the airflow is. It comes up over the roof and comes down over that rear deck lid that actually does play an aerodynamic part. So even by putting that duct tape on, it says, no, that's not going to work. And
but
he's the wave bar.
He did it good. Okay.
I think he's they're still looking for the overall lead of Tony Barretto.
Well, that is fortunate for the Bimmer World team, and a great job just to keep their head in the game, wait for a chance to let it all come back to them, and now a chance perhaps to try and recover something. That's a look at Jeff Burton's AWS Motorsports, the team. They've had a tough weekend too. Some mechanical gremlins on the Jason Harward car, at least one of them. I'm not sure if that was the GT America car or the Fanatec GT car, but in any event, they've been hard at work on that one. The crash in qualifying this morning, and now this, not what they needed.
No, it's a hard-working group, relatively young team to our paddock, but a lot of potential. Really starting to find some performance with those Lamborghinis, so they'll be disappointed, and disappointed for Jeff because he's been in the wars a little bit here today. So have to wait and see if that chassis is repairable to see any further action here this weekend in both GT America and Fanatec GT for tomorrow's races.
And unfortunately, it means we will not see his co-driver Corey Lewis at all today. Hopefully, again, they can get that car, or at least the other one of the two, sorted for tomorrow's races. Stephen Agakani runs in fourth. Amanda, what are you hearing about Stephen?
Right before that Porsche yellow, he was right there on the tail of Russell Ward trying to pull him in. But I was talking to his father. Cal, you mentioned that Stephen had strep throat. It was so bad, actually, as temperatures were over 100 degrees before they took him to urgent care. In the last 3 days, he has lost 11 pounds. The team said they were pumping him full of fluids with electrolytes before this stint. So as we get close and closer to this driver change, you have to imagine just the exhaustion that Stephen might finish. Another quick update, I just saw that K-Pax green Lambo go back on the track. I did talk to the team. They have replaced the entire throttle body in that car and hoping that that will rectify the issues in that Lambo.
Goikhberg at the wheel, now 9 laps down to the race leader, but looking to at least salvage some points. Only 5 cars in the pro class, so as long as he does, is it 70% of the race leader's distance, he can at least score 5th place points, and that's a heck of a lot better than no points.
And the other thing, this becomes a big test session, trying to figure out what is wrong with that car for tomorrow's race.
Yeah, that's very true as well. Under an hour to go. We are approaching that pit window. This appears like it could be a relatively lengthy cleanup. Let's go back to the Agakani story. Calvin, did you ever have to race when you really weren't feeling your best?
I have, and it's amazing once you're in the heat of the battle, the adrenaline kicks in and it kind of goes away. So he was expecting to really struggle here this weekend, but probably struggling more now when he's relaxed in the car under caution than he was when he was running full bore. But he's not probably going to have to do that much more green flag running. So even if he's feeling not 100%, he's got the car in good track position. This reset, this yellow is going to keep it very tight here. If they can execute a good clean stop, Spinelli certainly has the pace here, and he's got a car potentially going to take him a victory here this afternoon.
Adrenaline is some strong medicine, that's for sure, and it's working for Stephen Agakani, who has been on the pace. In fact, he has the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race right now at a 46.254. That is up a couple tenths on everyone else in the field as we look at our race vision powered by AWS. Overall top speeds. I mentioned I thought that the Acura looked strong at the end of the S's headed to the inner loop, and look at that. Ashton Harrison matching the BMW. That's a section of the track that BMW has been strong at over the years with a bunch of different types of cars. So speaks volumes to how strong in a straight line the Acura is today.
It is. But I still think the Mercedes is potentially the car to beat here this weekend. So it's not always just straightaway speed, right? It's the lap time, whereas developing the speed around the racetrack. And again, we keep harping on about it, but Spinelli's lap this morning got everyone's attention. 6/10 clear of Jordan Pepper, who was second fastest in that session. That's a monstrous gap. So he's anxious. I know he's frustrated by the team not being able to bring it home and get the car to victory lane. Could this be the day for the US Racetronics team?
Well, we'll find out in just under 57 minutes. That qualifying effort you mentioned from Spinelli for race 2 tomorrow, to be 6/10 clear, that is huge. But we should note, Pepper did have a good lap going, and he caught some traffic that was on a cool-down lap, or maybe a warm-up lap. In any event, it was not moving at full speed, and that could have cost Pepper a shot, at least to get closer, if not to stake his claim on pole itself. So I'm not sure that there's that big of a gap between the ultimate pace of that US Racetronics Mercedes and everyone else, but it's still a mighty, mighty lap that Laura Spinelli put up this morning in qualifying.
Well, it's just fun when you look at the co-drivers jumping on board. Caldarelli, Robbie Foley, Philip Ellis, Laura Spinelli, Mario Farnbacher, Colin Brown, Jan Halen and company. I mean, top-notch drivers. Brian Sellers, Dirk Mueller are going to get on board the DXDT machines. Ryan Diel has been flying in this weekend in the Triati Competizione Ferrari as well.
And that's a team that has some wind in its sails at the moment. The AM-class car more or less doing its own thing here this weekend, with AF Corsa not in attendance. But for Justin Wetherill and Ryan Dial to pick up a class win at VIR in the first race there, that was a big deal for them and for that pairing that have been working together in a coach and student role in the past. But now as co-drivers for the first time this season, and Justin coming from Ferrari Challenge, making a big step into GT3 racing.
Yeah, I had a nice chat with him yesterday. He's a really nice guy and very much a family man. He lives in Orlando, as does Ryan, so it's very a tight-knit community between that race group there. But loves his kids. They're here for the first time. They've seen him run in Ferrari Challenge, but watched him run in SRO competition for the first time this weekend, so he was excited about that. But he said, we're really starting to find our feet. He said, you know, I'm now starting to make passes, legitimate passes against the competition. He said, I'm really going through a learning curve in terms of running spec cars before, spec championships that all run identical cars, and now I'm running against different brands and where they have advantages, the pros and cons around a racetrack. So I'm really enjoying the process. He's very much a Ferrari guy, loves his Ferraris both on and off the racetrack, and it's exciting to see him enjoying it so much, and this team is a breath of fresh air in our paddock as well at the same time.
Those differences between cars, everyone balanced together through BOP, so the ultimate pace is roughly the same across the brands, but how they make that speed can vary, and it adds an extra level of complexity for the drivers to weigh the strengths and weaknesses of their opposition that you don't see in a single make series.
Very much so, particularly if you're trying to make passes. Like you said before, I was just trying to keep it together, not make the vital mistakes. He said, now I'm gaining the confidence to make my way through the field and identifying where you can have an advantage with the Ferrari over, say, a BMW or a Lamborghini or whoever else you're running up against. Is really a chess match, and he's enjoying that very much.
Yeah, for sure. Corner speeds at the bus stop, or the inner loop as they call it here at Watkins Glen. And Russell Ward, our race vision powered by AWS, has the advantage there. Yeah, so to your point about the Mercedes maybe being the strongest all-around package, they weren't at the very top of the list on top speed, but they were close, within a mile per hour. And to have that kind of strength through the inner loop, and we've seen it, maybe we don't have the data right now, but we've seen it visually where they can be strong in a number of the different corners. That Mercedes package seems like it's pretty well suited.
It is. It's one of those cars, I mean, they seem to be strong wherever we go, right? So it's a complete package. It may not be the ultimate best in any one sector, but it's good over the bumps. It's good on the curbing. We don't have a lot of bumps here, but it can eat up a lot of the curbs. Good in the brake zone. It's got a lot of downforce in that car, so good for the high-speed sweepers, and the power is decent as well. Good torque coming off the corners, so it delivers, and I think it's a car that has a big sweet spot. I don't think it's so sensitive to the setups as well, so I think that's why they're consistently one of the fastest cars.
Talking about the Triarci Competizione team and Justin Wetherill earlier, let's hear more about that car and team with Amanda.
Well, Ryan, the guys were talking about you in the booth as you are getting ready to get into your stint. I know you're busy getting ready for this, but when you look at the success that the team has had of late, what do you really kind of point out between you and Justin that's allowing this to happen?
I mean, it starts with a great team and a package, and I was excited when I joined Triarci and getting the opportunity to build something new. And I think eventually VR, things started clicking for us. it's been a good weekend so far, but unfortunately in the GT America race earlier, Justin got taken out, and that's our primary car. So we're noticing a little bit of damage in this race, but we're going to get through this race, make sure everything feels good, and then attack tomorrow from the pole.
Any routines for you ahead of the race while you get ready?
Routines? No, I've done this long enough. No superstitions, no routines, just a couple of deep breaths, glass of water, and let's go.
Have fun.
Oh, we're having fun right now. Michael Dinan took a run at Michele Beretta. They ran each other wide, and that opened the door for Windward, and Russell Ward has gone to the points.
Wow, what a series of corners right there. Total commitment by Michael Dinan. Went to the inside, had the line, forced on the grass, didn't give it up, side by side through the inner loop. Beretta used him up a little bit as they went through the corner, kept his power in through the grass, and keeps it on the road. But meantime, Russell Ward whistles through and grabs the lead for Windward Racing.
Let's think about this stint for Ward. He started second, dropped back to fourth. Now he's driven his way to the lead. He has been in the wars, and right now he is out in front. Dinan, that was costly, getting driven off course, or at least going off course to avoid contact. He's dropped several spots, and in fact now sits in between the battle for the lead in Pro-Am.
I love the commitment though. It didn't come off, but I tell you what, that's telling the whole field what sort of commitment Michael Dinan has.
Yeah, he's an up-and-coming star, that's for sure. So is Stephen Agakani, and he's got his hands full, but he keeps the pedal down. Coming out of turn 11, Stephen Agakani trying to make a run at the K-Pax Racing Lamborghini.
Yeah, and Beretta is vulnerable right now. He had the track position, he's lost it here, and he's got a lot of threat from behind as well from the other Mercedes. So this is where Caldarelli's going to have his work cut out, right? It all depends on the pit stop. If everyone does equal pit stops, Caldarelli is maybe going to see that win streak certainly in jeopardy, at least here this afternoon.
It looks that way, but still a long way to go. 50 minutes on the clock. We're approaching that pit window opening. It is now, and we'll see who blinks first. Agakani continuing to pressure Michele Beretta, the Lamborghini-affiliated driver. Agakani under the weather, but not driving like it today.
No, just immense. And I would think that they maybe want to bring that 06 machine in with Spinelli's pace. You don't want to waste that. Get him behind the wheel. Stephen's done an excellent job here, despite not feeling 100%, but don't wait too long. Don't allow Ward to maybe stretch if he stays out. Don't allow Beretta to stay out there. Lots at play right now, making the right decision.
Also on the restart, a change for fourth in Pro-Am. Real-time racing up another spot. Erin Vogel got around David Askew, so she's now 9th overall and runs fourth in the Pro-Am class.
Great run by Erin here. Really proud of her from the back of the grid with that penalty that they had to take. She's had a spirited race here.
That's up 8 spots overall from her 17th place starting position following the penalty after qualifying. Pit window is open. This is the first time of asking. Let's see who elects to come in. Russell Ward continues to lead. That was Dinan running wide there in turn 10. Here we go. K-Pax comes in. US Racetronics comes in.
This is not unusual because with the rules, the lower graded driver has to do the qualifying chores and start the race. So you want to get your pro in, maximize their speed potential. Sometimes there's not much to choose between the co-drivers, but here we see the train of cars. Who's going to nail the pit stop? When you're coming in this close, just a few tenths can make a massive difference in terms of your track position when you leave pit lane. Michael Cooper is ready.
Full service stop, 71 seconds, the minimum pit lane delta. That's from pit in to pit out. That was strange.
That was strange. I'm
Stop and hold 1 minute, car one, incident responsibility. But he didn't hold for a minute.
No, he didn't. He did not hold for a minute. No way.
Huh. Well, there's...
One would have been close. Let's look at the clock. 50. Might have been tight. Might have been tight. He's one of the first ones in, but it did seem shy. Just feel. I didn't have a stopwatch on it, but...
I don't think so. Anyway, we'll have to sort that one through. Maybe K-Pax did figure that one out. At any rate, Bimmerworld making the change. Chandler Hull, what an interesting stint he had. Bill Auberlin checking into that car, running without the rear deck lid. It's an interesting look. And we'll have to wait and see how everyone sorts out on this pit stop. Meanwhile, Ward and Dinan stayed out, and this is a crucial stretch for them to throw down fast laps
Beretta only was in the pit lane for 30 seconds. Yeah, he didn't hold for a minute.
That was a drive-through that he did, and that's not what the penalty was.
No.
Here we go. Russell Ward now will pit from the lead. Dinan pits from second. Triarci stays out in the AM class car. Nope, he does come into the pit lane. So just about everyone has come in for service here already early in this window.
Yeah, how's the overcut going to work out? The overcut is when you stay out, use your hot tires to maximum effect. The driver's in the rhythm versus drivers now on their outlap and how they compare. I got a feeling Winwood, if they execute this pit stop, could have the track position. And Philip Ellis is going to try and hang on here. Egakani to Spinelli. That is a great stop there. 1/10 under the minimum. They have the joker to play with, a 1 second joker available to the teams.
Oh, problems on the left front here on the Windward car that can't get it seated. Now finally it's on, but that did cost them some time.
I mean, they have lost a couple of big race victories here recently with little things. How's this going to play out?
Windward car released. You could see the US Racetronics car coming down the front straightaway. That should be Spinelli easily coming through to take over the race lead. I think I saw the number 1 from K-Pax in the pits and stationary this time. That is Beretta in for the second time and through to the lead. US Racetronics and Laura Spinelli will take it home.
So they lost 3 seconds, so it would have been tight. That would have been tight with the 6 car. If they got out on time and didn't have that slight delay, probably would have just had it with the overcut by Ward staying out. This was an absolute game changer for this team. We've talked about their pit stops not being the smoothest, had some wheel change issues earlier this year. They absolutely nailed this one. It would be quite the statement for this team.
Turner boys pretty quick on their stop, 71.9 seconds in the changeover from Dinan to Foley.
That's not ideal. That's leaving at least 9/10 on the table, plus the joker.
Well, for now, it's in fact the brand new team to the championship that is the leader of the race. The de facto leader is Laura Spinelli and US Racetronics, because the Team Hardpoint car needs to come in. But how about PJ Hyatt, his series debut, and his leading laps?
That's pretty cool. Making their debut with Hardpoint, and car didn't even run yesterday in the practice sessions. First track time was this morning in GT America qualifying, and they've done a wonderful job. Great to see this team in this championship, and great to see the backstory of PJ Hyatt and Gunnar Jeanette. PJ Hyatt is a Porsche enthusiast, has a car collection that Gunnar's dad operates for him. He lives in Chicago, as does Gunnar. He's been coaching him, Gunnar has, and they're now dipping their toe in the water with potentially running full-time here next year. They're waiting to see how this weekend goes, but it's a great debut.
PJ from the Chicago area, also has spent some time in Northern California, Silicon Valley, where he had some success in business founding or co-founding the software development hosting platform GitHub. But an avid racer with some Radical Cup experience, stepping up to GT3 at this level for the very first time, seeing the track for the first time in qualifying earlier today. He ran the GT America race, so that's helping for sure, but a nice job by PJ Hyatt, who has aspirations to be around a lot more in the future.
Just a ton of work just getting the car here. They only kind of collaborated about 12 days ago now, I guess it was, a phone call where Gunnar Jeanette was talking to Rob Ferriel from Hardpoint, looking for a spares package. They had some conversation, and Rob said, well, who's running the car? He said, well, we've kind of not made that decision yet. He said, well, we have an operation ready to go. Put that together, delivered the car to the Hardpoint Racing team shop, got it here, everything looked to be smooth, and then suddenly when they tried to get the car running in the garage area yesterday, it wouldn't run properly. They thought it was a fuel pump issue, went through everything, changed everything. Finally, they skipped both their practice sessions, put in a new motor last night with a new wiring harness, and that seemed to fix it. So, been a lot of work to get it to where it's at this point.
Philip Ellis runs second for Windward, trying to chase down Laura Spinelli. but we should give an update on this car. This is their third time in the pit lane. They had the botched attempt to do the penalty. It was just a drive-through instead of the stop and hold as it should be. The next lap, they finally did the stop and hold. Now they finally get to do the service, and that win streak that dates back to this track 1 year ago looks like it is effectively over, given the miscues that you're not used to seeing from this K-Pax team. Let's hear more from Amanda.
I was just going to add real quickly to that they did actually put spare tires from qualifying onto that K-Pax #1 Lambo. It actually was concerns from Andrea Caldarelli that brought it up to the team, wanted to save the good tires for tomorrow and acceptance that they might not get that win here today.
Well, that makes sense, compromising. They're on the back foot here today. The win streak is probably gone, right? So let's not use up our good stuff. Let's save those for tomorrow when we can put them to more effect. But he's got a lot of work to do from 9th on the grid tomorrow.
If you go back to 2020, K-Pax spent the year racing in GT World Challenge Europe, barring, I think, 1 or 2 appearances with a Pro-Am car with a Bentley in America. Their main focus, though, was over in Europe. Since they have come back, this has been the dominant team in the championship. But Calvin, they are 4th and 5th in class right now. And more than that, they are 14th and 16th overall. Not something we have seen in a very long time from K-Pax.
No, an unusual circumstance.
Right.
Obviously, the technical issue with the green #3 machine, and then the penalties here for Beretta with the argy-bargy that he had with Michael Dinan there up through the inner loop. But even so, there have been weekends where they haven't had the fastest car, Ryan. They've been vulnerable, but somehow, I think, particularly through the potential and pace of Michele Beretta as the AM driver, the silver in the pro lineups now that have to be set in stone. That's really made a big difference. They've been able to leverage that and get the wins.
PJ Hyatt has relinquished the lead, coming in just before the end of the pit window for Team Hardpoint. And that has cycled Spinelli officially now to the race lead. He holds that spot over Philip Ellis by 2.1 seconds. Mario Farnbacher in the Pro-Am leading car from Racer's Edge Motorsports runs in 3rd. Then it's Foley for Turner Motorsport. And then this car, Jan Halen driving, Wright Motorsports the team, and just behind the pole-sitting car in Pro-Am, Colin Brown now piloting the CrowdStrike Mercedes for the Riley Motorsports operation.
Yeah, there's going to be some tasty little battles going on here. Really great stuff. Certainly has turned the tables here a little bit in what we anticipated here this afternoon, but we did anticipate that 6-car having pace and maybe getting their first victory if they could execute. They've done everything perfectly so far here today. Great pit stop, right on the money in terms of the target time, the minimum time spent on pit lane. But you got 2 very fast Mercedes out front being chased by an Acura.
This group all running laps nearly identical to one another, but then you go up to the leaders, and Philip Ellis, the last time around, set the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race and was 0.3 quicker than the leader. Let's see what this lap looks like. It was a 45.4 for Spinelli, a 45.1 for Ellis. That's another 0.3 to the good for the Windward car.
Well, they've executed, but maybe there's a team that has a slightly faster car than them here today. Philip Ellis, when we spoke to him yesterday, he was very buoyant, he was very happy and positive, but he said, you know, we're struggling a bit this weekend, quite honestly. But you know, with these teams, the racetrack changes, it rubbers in a little bit more, the track can come to you, and also they can tweak on these cars and just change the tide a little bit. Certainly looked like yesterday with that Gacani having the fastest time, not Laura Spinelli, that the car had true potential. But certainly this Windward team are digging deep, trying to get a first big win of the year.
Warnings issued from race control for track limits to Jan Halen and Colin Brown, 2nd and 3rd in Pro-Am. That was in turn 8, pushing the envelope as they chase one another. Behind them, Bill Oberlin made a pass that last lap around Dirk Moeller. For that Bimmer World team to be back in the top 5 after all the issues they've had in this race, that is a story of perseverance.
Absolutely. They got helped a little bit, obviously, with the yellows, but nonetheless, to have that bodywork issue with Chandler Hull, who's in a really good track position initially, then struggled with that, had to be hurting his downforce a bit. To get that car back into a top 5 in class position is great.
This is about to be a 3-car battle for position. Foley, Halen, and Brown. Foley not a class position for the two cars behind him, but he is a little bit off the pace relative to Halen and Brown, at least that last time around. Is right on board now with Bill Auberlin. Like Halen starting to reel him in, just a couple tenths to the good that last lap.
Two leaders are trading blows, like literally within 7,000 of a second on that last lap, so the gap is staying pretty constant at the front.
That message went through to Loris Spinelli that Ellis was coming because he just turned his car's fastest lap of the race, and that is within 400ths of the race's fastest lap. And you're right, they were 7 thousandths apart that last time around, but the edge, once again, slightly to Philip Ellis.
Curious what this bodywork, which is now missing as opposed to being in the wrong position, is doing for Auberlin's balance on the race car. I mean, aerodynamics is so essential around a high-speed circuit like this. Who knows? Maybe it's helping things out. Never can tell. Many a time you see in the car that's all pointed in the wrong direction go a little bit faster than it was going before.
The engineers don't like to hear that, though, do they? All their computer simulations say this is the way, and the driver says, well, you won't believe this, but there it is again. 4th, 5th, and 6th overall, all right there together. Halen marginally quicker than the two cars he's running in between at the moment, and Mario Farnbacher just continues to do his thing at the front of the Pro-Am field and 3rd overall. What a great performance from Super Mario.
Yeah, he just gets up on the wheel. I mean, he is a monster behind the wheel of one of these Acura NSX. HPD and Honda and Acura absolutely love him, totally believe in him. And if you're a customer team and you get the support from HPD and you get handed Mario Farnbacher, you know you have an absolute stud behind the wheel. But kind of funny that the two cars that are following each other have got those track limit violation or warnings in terms of Halen and Brown. I'm sure Brown's saying, well, he's doing it in front of me, and Halen's saying, well, he's doing it behind me.
Farnbacher flirting with it too.
Essentially the rule is you have to have some part of one tire touching the painted curb. So you're allowed to go up and over, but some part has to be touching it. If you're completely over, you're going to start to get warnings, and ultimately, they said in the driver's meeting, we will drive you through. If you're a repeated offender, we will make that call. In qualifying, it's a ding the lap immediately. But in the race, taking away a lap time doesn't mean anything to you. It's all about if you have to suffer a drive-through.
Let's hear from the K-Pax racing team, or at least about them, with Amanda.
Michele, our first opportunity to talk to you about the on-track between you and Michael Dinan. From your perspective, how do you break it down?
Honestly, I have to review it on TV because from inside of my point of view, it didn't felt very a bad move. Unluckily, we get a penalty, so I want to investigate, but that's a pretty fast corner. 4th gear corner is normally difficult to diving in the inside, but I got a push behind and then went, I think, side by side. I left probably a little bit of space. But honestly, I don't know. I got overtake from the Mercedes then. But maybe the penalty was very tough. But we have, as I said, I want to investigate it later on TV and with the video.
Can you tell us about the penalty? You had entered into pit lane, stopped, went back out.
There was a miscommunication on the radio. I got called for the box and driver change, but then there was this penalty coming on, and then there was a little bit of a mess in the radio communication, and that's why we ended up going for a drive-through. So that's bad.
Thank you.
Tough situation there. We saw the replay of what we assume led to the penalty, and it was tight, certainly, between Dinan and Beretta. What did you make of it?
I'm feeling they might make the call on the straightaway move rather than through the corner, through the bus stop. I mean, Michael had a move going. Michele went in that direction and kind of squeezed him on the grass. And when you go on 160 miles an hour, that's pretty spicy, right? So I don't think through the bus stop. I mean, two cars going side by side, they kind of had a little touch. Michael kept going, ran through the grass. I got a feeling it was maybe the move, a reactive move on the straightaway part as it all started to develop there.
Well, certainly questions we will ask when this race wraps up, and it will be a talking point tomorrow, I have no doubt, for the second of 2 races here this weekend. That's scheduled for 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon here at Watkins Glen. Talk about these leaders, though, exchanging body blows like a couple of heavyweight fighters, and that's exactly what Spinelli and Ellis have been doing, figuratively speaking, just trading that crowd strike fastest lap back and forth between them. The last time by, it went to Spinelli by about 1/10 of a second, and we'll see what happens on this lap if Philip Ellis can claw him back in.
Yeah, I know, and that's the fastest lap of the race, so they're trading blows and going very, very quickly as the fuel load is burning off these Pirelli tires. They're still giving these drivers the performance they're looking for. That lap just 1/10 slower for Spinelli. Ellis, Billy, 200 slower than his previous best, so he gained about 1/10 of a second there on that lap, so they are so evenly matched. It's going to be a question of, does Spinelli hit traffic? Does one car get a little bit more tire degradation than the other? And managing it. So when you're pushing this hard, how much can you manage the tires? You're pretty much asking for every ounce of grip on every corner to achieve the lap times that they're seeing. Two teams that have just had super frustration this year for this group, certainly in our championship, for Winwood in other championships here in North America. Had a win taken away for a drive time irregularity at this particular racetrack, the 6 hours here last month, and then had a fuel pump issue last week on the verge of seeing the checkered flag, 2 corners to go. So both teams deserve a win, but they don't get handed to you. You got to finish off the deal.
Both of these teams, too, appear to be emerging and climbing the Mercedes hierarchy. And you look at what Winward has become in a short amount of time. And the acquisition of HTP certainly helped accelerate that a couple of years ago. But the programs they're running all throughout the world in multiple championships, it's really remarkable. And for US Racetronics, maybe a little bit newer, but certainly they've proven that they are among the very best in this championship since the very start of the season at Sonoma, if not for just these tiny little miscues. And this has been that nice, smooth day that they've been waiting for, now trying to capitalize on it with just 30 minutes to go.
Well, if they do pull it off, it'll be a sweet one because it will not come easy. Ellis is going to keep the pressure on them, but this is a very spirited battle here. Not for class position, but certainly Halen is going to keep pushing because if he backs off, Colin Brown is going to be right with him for P2 position in Pro-Am. So Foley's P3 in Pro, Halen P2 in Pro-Am, and Brown P3 in Pro-Am right now.
How do you handle this situation if you're Robbie Foley? You're not fighting these guys for position, but you know, if I can stay ahead and there's a yellow, now I'm caught back up to the guys in my class. We know how strong the BMW is on the restart. You don't want to interfere with an out-of-class battle.
Oh, Foley is letting him go. I hope it's not an issue. I think he's just letting him go. Maybe making that decision. I assume is that Brown is really sideways there. Now Foley's back up to speed, so I think that was the decision. Listen, we've got a solid podium run going. Let's not fight with these guys. You know Jan Halen can get feisty at times. And that's Jay O'Connell on the radio too. Robbie Foley giving that his advice, and maybe in coordination or collaboration, should I say, with Michael Dinan as well.
The only thing that surprises me with that is, again, if there had been another full course yellow, now you've got out-of-class traffic separating you from the rest of your class. But if they say, realistically, this isn't our day, third is what we're going to be able to get, don't risk anymore, then that is the safer call, that's for sure. And if they can lock down that third place, that would be a third consecutive podium for Dinan and Foley in this class after none in the first 4 races.
Yeah, they had a rough NOLA. Spinelli and Foley got together there, a little bit of roughing up, and ultimately led to retirement for the Turner Motorsports car. So rebounding from that weekend nicely at VIR. So they're still learning the ropes with this new car. Every weekend they go out, they're learning more and more. They're running it, obviously, in another championship as well. So that adds to their learning progress, but certainly the car demands a little bit different setup on this Pirelli tire.
Everyone around the world still learning this car. It made its competitive debut at the end of the year last year elsewhere, but in North America at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and then here in this championship at Sonoma. But BMW's new offering, 3-liter straight 6 twin turbo powered machine, makes about 590 horsepower depending on the balance of performance in a given weekend. Really cool looking race car, and one of the neat things about it, you look at the steering wheel on the left-hand side of this shot. This is the Bill Oberlin driven one, but it's the same here too. BMW did a deal partnering with Fanatec, great partner of SRO Racing, makers of high-quality sim racing equipment. And the wheel you see on this car, if you have the correct wheelbase from Fanatec, you could plug that wheel into your wheelbase and drive on your computer, and vice versa. There's one you can buy from Fanatec that you could plug into a BMW M4 GT3 if you happen to have one sitting around.
Yeah, I got a feeling the BMW is a bit more expensive, but
maybe.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
It's really cool.
Yeah, great to see that crossover just growing between the esports world and motorsports.
He's on the charge.
Yes.
He's now on the tail of Michael Cooper, as you can see, running lap times considerably quicker, so it should only be a matter of time. You know Michael's going to dig deep here. And looking at the performance of the two BMWs, Forley's now third in Pro-Am, 6 on the road. His fastest lap is only a few hundredths quicker than Billy Oberlin, so very evenly matched, just as we saw in qualifying for tomorrow's race.
All the more impressive is that he's doing this with the wounded car. I will be really curious to hear what Bill has to say about this experience. And to your point earlier, what did you give up, if anything, running the car without its normal bodywork because of either damage or just some kind of malfunction? We're not really sure what caused that bodywork to pop up back in the first stint of this race with Chandler Hull driving.
Yeah, I'm curious. You would think that the air would tumble over the greenhouse effect of the race car and cause a little bit more drag and not be as clean back there, but it doesn't seem to be struggling too badly.
It's like problems for the other Zelus Lamborghini. We're showing on timing and scoring Madison Snow in the pits. That's the car that Jason Harward started. That's too bad. They've already dropped a few laps to the leader, but this battle is a good one. Bill Oberlin closing in on a multi-time champion in SRO competition. Michael Cooper, he has won at the GT3, GT4, and touring car levels as far as championships go, but he's got his hands full with the BMW Master.
Yeah, Bill is really working him over. I had a chat yesterday with Andrew Davis about the great racing that he's been involved in this year, and he said, Bill Oberlin, what a few battles I've had this year, and he keeps it clean. He really does. He doesn't give you an inch, but he will not take you out. So it's just super hard driving there, and he finally makes that position stick on Michael Cooper.
Cooper still looking for an opening. If he can get that spot back, he will. But now it looks like Oberlin should be able to pull ahead. Now that he's clear of Cooper, drops real time back to 5th, which would match their season best result. And I would argue there are different types of 5th place finishes. You go back to the weekend they had at VIR where a 5th felt like a win, and I'm not sure this one's quite on that level, but it's not far off given the fact that they had to start all the way at the back of this field to charge as far forward as Aaron Vogel did. Now Michael Cooper trying to hold it down for the final 24 minutes.
Up front, Laura Spinelli continues to lead the gap now at 1.45, so his last lap is just a half a tenth quicker than Philip Ellis, but just shortly before then, Philip Ellis laid down a new fast lap of the race, so he is the fastest car in this race here today, and he is not going away. It's going to be so critical. Who's got the time management over the last 15 minutes of this race? Does one of these cars start to fall off a little bit in terms of its tire performance and balance and ultimately lap time? Oh, problems here for Farnbacher.
Oh no, that's the leader in Pro-Am.
Left rear, I think.
Yes. That is heartbreaking stuff. They were really in control of the Pro-Am class, but left rear down on the Racer's Edge Acura NSX GT3 Evo. Oh, that's gonna make for some tight quarters there as Oberlin catches him in a weird spot. Just a little bit of an awkward interaction between the two. A long way to limp back home.
A long way, probably another mile to go, so that is really painful for a team that are having a great day.
Battle for the lead heating up. Philip Ellis,
New fast
CrowdStrike
lap.
fastest lap, exactly, a 1:44.787. He picked up 0.2 of a second that time by Laura Spinelli, and it's now just 1.2 seconds between the two.
Doesn't sound like a lot, but I think that's the biggest margin we've seen all day long between these two drivers in blow-for-blow lap times. Spinelli will know that. He'll be seeing it in his rear-view facing camera. The team will be giving him the gaps. doesn't want to have Philip Ellis any closer if they should come across any traffic here.
Philip Ellis, born to a British mother and German father, I believe is what we learned yesterday, but grew up in Switzerland, races with the Swiss flag, and one of the rising stars within the Mercedes program, chasing down another rising star in Loris Spinelli. What a great duel we have on our hands here for the final 21 minutes.
And Spinelli's responding. I mean, the last sector there, they were 1,000ths different. 1,000th of a second through sector 2. See a little twitch there by Ellis as he's trying to get the power down and close that gap to the leader. Spinelli's car is still really strong.
We were talking earlier in the show about, in this style of racing, different cars have different advantages, but this is basically a single make race that's broken out at the front of the field between the two Mercedes. They should know their respective strengths and weaknesses very, very well. How do you find it? How do you exploit something like that when you've got the exact same piece of equipment as the guy in front of you?
Well, again, I just think as the fuel burns off and the car gets a little bit lighter, how does it respond to that? Does it continue to get faster and faster, or does then the tire degradation factor in and it starts to go the other way? Maintaining the balance, how hard you drive this car, keeping these lap times as sharp as they are, but not abusing the tires here will be the key, I think, to victory.
Ellis with that Crown Strike fastest lap. 2 laps ago. So close now, within a second, but this is when that dirty air starts to become a factor when you get this close. These cars are very reliant on aerodynamics. This is not the GT racing of 20 years ago.
There's a 1.13 second gap between the pro leaders. There's a 1.12 second gap between the Pro-Am leaders of Halen and Brown. Colin Brown just laid down his fastest lap of the race and closing that gap on Jan Halen.
Mario Farnbacher in and out with a new left rear tire, but that was costly from the Pro-Am lead. He's dropped down to the 13th spot and 9th in class. Absolutely gutting for the Racer's Edge team.
Cruz watch on. He's going to have the upper hand here in about 20 minutes. So tight between these two drivers. Ellis just went purple in sector 2, fastest sector 2 time. He's inching up on this leader right now, getting ever closer, it looks like.
Yeah, but it is inches. We're talking a couple hundredths of a second there to have that advantage over Spinelli through that. That lap was a 45.0, and Spinelli actually marginally quicker, a 44.9. It was 1/100th of a second on the nose between the two the last time around.
Yeah, Spinelli responded there in sector 3 to gap him a little bit by a couple of tenths. So those are the margins we're talking about. 2 drivers totally on top of their game, 2 teams who have executed perfectly here today, and 2 Mercedes chassis that are ultimately very well suited to this racetrack.
Race Vision powered by AWS. How about this? Corner speeds at the carousel, and it's the Ferrari, the lone Ferrari entrant this weekend is Triarsi Competizione, and it's the M-Class car that shares that statistic there with Michele Beretta at 111.2 miles per hour. That is hauling the mail.
As are these two.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate. Looking for perfection here today to win this race.
Back down the order. This is Ryan Dial. Right now 7th in Pro-Am, 10th overall, chasing Brian Sellers and Dirk Muller from the DXDT racing team that Dial drove for last year. And then here is Charlie Scardina, who has taken over for Onofrio Triarsi in the AM class entry from the Triarsi team.
Just a great team. Burst onto the scene last year at Sebring. Showed pace immediately as we go back up front. The gap is now underneath 1 second for the first time here today with these 2 current drivers behind the wheel.
Now the battle's heating up, and as it does, let's hear from the Windward camp with Amanda.
Well, Russell, as you watch along with this Loris Spinelli and Philip Ellis, 1 and 2, what can you tell us about tires? You had a stint out there. Is there any concern for you guys?
You know, not personally for me. I mean, we had a really good long run pace over in practice, so I think that's actually our strength. We always try to set the car up for that because I'd much rather have a fast race car at the end than a fast race car at the beginning. So I see Philip is doing as good as he can. He's hunting him down, but I think overtaking is going to be difficult. I mean, Spinelli's no slouch, so but we'll see what he's got for him.
Mercedes versus Mercedes. The guys were talking about the differences that can be when you have two cars of the same on track. What are those differences that you guys can find?
Yeah, it looks like they're set up quite differently. I mean, they've got a decent amount of top speed. It doesn't, we're right behind them and we're not any faster on the straightaway. So, they've got a little bit more oomph in it. But that should mean that we're better in other places. So we'll just see what we got for him.
That's Russell Ward, class winner a year ago at the 24 Hours of Daytona.
You almost called him Phyllis. I think I'm going to do that at some point this year. I just know it's in my head now.
Yeah, Philip Ellis. Phyllis, yep. Well, now you planted that in my noggin. Ooh, that was Phyllis there, going just a little bit wide over the curbs. Wonder what race control will think of that. That's one of the areas they're looking at.
Yeah, there'll be a warning. I haven't seen that 33 pop up as having received one so far today for track limits, but certainly you know that the US Racetronics team will be on top of that.
Fastest lap of the race for Spinelli, a 44.6, resetting the bar. Ellis right behind, a 44.7. It was 96 thousandths of a second, the difference between them, but that leaves Spinelli with that slightly larger gap.
As tight as the battle is up front for the overall and pro win, it is very tight here in Pro-Am as well. Jan Helen's been laying down fastest laps of his day, but Colin Brown has been matching him very tight, just 8/10, and you can see the gap on the racetrack right now. Big battle here for the Pro-Am win.
Everyone's pushing here in the final 15 minutes of this one. The top 6, top 7 all turned personal best laps that last time by, so everyone leaving it all on the track here at Watkins Glen. Spinelli leads Ellis overall, and there's a problem for the windward car. This is Ellis. Looks like a left front.
Oh boy.
This
Paul,
team.
who runs this team, they just cannot believe the disappointment that they've endured here over the last couple of months.
Well, there's no doubt Ellis was pushing that car for all it's worth, and you imagine the front's going to have to compensate a little bit. Being in traffic like that, maybe that puts just that little bit more load on the tire.
Yeah, well, with the Lamborghini, they were concerned with the rear tires, managing that. For the front engine Mercedes, it puts a bit more load on the front, and here we'll see how it develops here. Probably as he comes into the 2 or the boot. Yeah, it just lets go.
Well, the timing of that actually was quite lucky. That did not happen in a braking zone. It did not happen in a corner. And that car, unless the tire comes apart, should remain intact, but it's going to cost them any chance at victory here today. After a brilliant start to the race, Russell Ward started second, dropped to 4th, drove to the lead. Then Philip Ellis was slowly but surely reeling in Loris Spinelli, and it all comes undone with under 14 minutes to go.
Well, we talked about managing the tire, but yet having that pace. And Philip Ellis was just on full attack mode, trying to run Spinelli down. So concern will now be Spinelli. The teams run slightly different setups. A lot of it comes down to your tire pressures and certainly your camber settings, and then ultimately the balance in the race car, which tire it's loading the most around this racetrack. So Spinelli out front now and has a handy lead, 21 seconds over Jan Halen, but more importantly, 27 seconds over Foley now on second in the pro class.
Credit where credit is due. This team, US Racetronics, over the season so far, they have found ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And on a day when most of the competition has had misfortune or self-destructed in some way, they have been perfectly clean to this point, still 12 minutes to go, and are having that kind of performance they've been looking for all season. And if they can hang on, they will be richly rewarded with their first win of the year.
Yeah, I will be amazed if Spinelli's pace does not drop off at least a second, to 2 seconds a lap here. He's just got to manage things here at this point. They will certainly tell him that Ellis is out with tire issues. Just bring it home. He's got a massive lead. No need to threaten anything in terms of maintaining pace right now.
That's right. So his lead over the second-placed car overall is 20-odd seconds. That's Jan Heylen right here, the Porsche at the front of this shot. His lead over the second-place car in his class is significantly larger even than that. It's now Robbie Foley who has swept through to take over second in Pro, fourth overall. I'm curious where Ellis came out of the pits relative to Foley. It looks like he did slot in between Foley and Oberlin, fifth overall. No, he did not. He lost that spot too, so yikes, that is going to be costly for Ellis, who continues to plummet down the timing screens. This now becomes our best battle on the racetrack, and it is not just for the lead in Pro-Am, but also for second overall, the Belgian Jan Heylen and the Texan Colin Brown.
Spinelli immediately responds with our suggestion. Went from a 44.6 to a 46.9, so they'll just talk him through this and manage the gap here. But for these two, we've got to keep pushing. They want that winning class. It's also promoted Oberlin up to another podium run for he and Chandler Hull. Is that their fifth potential on the year? Certainly had a solid run of podium runs going. Michael Cooper now up to fourth, and Dirk Mueller, Brian Sellers, two top six runs for DXDT.
I think that would be the fifth podium for Hull and Oberlin, and it would be their second consecutive if they were to pull it off for this car. Think about the start to the season for Wright, going back to Sonoma, sweeping the weekend there, and we thought, oh wow, this new lineup, but it's going to be the same story. This is the reigning Pro-Am champion team, and then the wheels fell off at NOLA. It was not a good weekend there. They started to get things going again at VIR, and right now looking like this is the team we expected when the season began.
Yeah, no, it's they had to really regroup. I mean, Charlie got in the wars a little bit at NOLA, new racetrack, difficult conditions, and he got caught out a little bit. But the father and son-in-law have certainly been very impressive this year. Wright Motorsports do such a solid job with that Porsche, so much experience. Always roll off the truck, as we call it, in terms of how the car shows up at the racetrack with great setups, and always a threat for the championship.
And for this car, even if Colin isn't able to make the move, this is a good day for them in the points. They lead by 13 coming in, and consistency has, oh boy, problems for Bill Oberlin as they were running in podium contention. This car's been through it here today. Quickly to finish my point, I was about to say that Hertz and Brown, they've been so consistent all season, only one finish worse than third all year. And you got to avoid misfortune like this to win a title. Tough break.
Left front, he was feeling something, either a vibration or it started to lose pressure. They made the call to bring him in. That's going to cost them the podium. Guess what that does? Puts Aaron Vogel and Michael Cooper up in a podium slot. From
last. They started 17th today. They now run 5th overall and 3rd in Pro-Am. It's been that kind of day. Topsy-turvy, unpredictable. The only constant, quite frankly, has been this car. And that's not something we've been able to say this year.
Yeah, and Spinelli's run a high 46, a low 47, a low 46 compared to mid 44s that he and Ellis were doing, trading fast laps there in the middle of this race. So total tire management at this stage is trying to bring it home.
8.5 minutes to go. Absolutely no pressure from behind. But how do you deal with this? The pressure of bringing it home, knowing how close the team has come, knowing the heartbreak they've gone through. And now you're not necessarily in the rhythm you were in earlier. You're not running the laps at that metronomic rate that you were when you were just pushing like you were naturally. Is that where a mistake could creep in?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, Spinelli's top draw talent, right? So the fact of the matter is, when you do on a street circuit, I think we always reflect back to Rene, and Senna did that and lost the victory at Monaco that year when he started to drop off the pace, lost his rhythm and put it in the fence there. But I think on a circuit like this, it just gives him big margins. We just saw him drive on the front straightaway a few minutes ago with a massive gap to the fence. So he's not going to get near those boundaries. So unless he has total brain failure, he should be able to bring it home nicely by running 2-3 seconds off the lap times.
Charlie Luck and Jan Halen have a pair of wins this season, but none since the first 2 races of the year at Sonoma. And Charlie is with Amanda.
I think he's getting a little more information from his team. But Charlie, we talk about 2 wins to kick off the season. You guys had a little bit of a turnaround in Virginia. How much, just getting back into that top step of the podium for this team, how crucial would it be on championship stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely have to win everything we can from here on. So I don't know, we're 12 or 15 points out of championship right now. So, you know, the Mercedes team is really strong. Their motor's stronger than ours. So we're definitely weak in that regard. So we got to make it up in the corners. And so, yeah, this is a major push, and this is what we need. So far, so good.
Tire Deg has been leading the conversation of the theme in the broadcast today. You said it seemed that the Porsche was doing fine. No real feedback from Jan on any issues from your stint. Did you notice any loose ends or struggles with grip?
No, so, you know, whenever you have a long caution period like that, this track shreds tires, so there's all kinds of loose tire debris. So everybody is experiencing pickup. That's the biggest problem we had, and other people I was fighting had, is the pickup under caution. It takes like 3 laps to rub it all off, excuse me. So, anyway, but Jan may have tire deg, but he's not talking about it.
Thank you, Charlie.
If this finishes in this way, it was a 13-point deficit for Halen and Luck to the car that's chasing them coming in. The difference between first and second in points is 7, 25 to 18. So that deficit basically cut in half if Jan Halen can hold off, but then it swings the other way if Colin Brown's able to make the pass.
Yeah, it's 2 for, right? You take 7 away and you gain 7, so it's massive right now. And they know that. Colin Brown will know who they're fighting.
Oh my gosh. That was Spinelli off the track.
Has he got a cut down tire? That car looks like it's bouncing a lot.
Well, it would be the left side you'd be concerned about.
I mean, it looked to me as he got back on the road there, the car was hopping around a little bit on the left front. Let's take a look.
I agree. I don't think he's pushing. Yep, left front down for the overall leader, Loris Spinelli in strife. Could that be enough to get Turner through to the lead? Robbie Foley is 24 seconds back. I don't see any way that this service is done in time.
No, it cost you that just coming down pit lane plus some.
Oh my goodness, US Racetronics, what do you gotta do to buy a break? And meanwhile, we might have a Pro-Am car win overall. Charlie Luck's teammate, Jan Halen, through to the overall lead. Brown now second, Foley through to third. He leads in Pro.
Unbelievable. This day just keeps delivering in terms of shocks and surprises.
Oh. I don't know who's had worse luck, Windward or US Racetronics this year.
It's pretty equal, and it's equal on the day as well, right?
Sure looks that way.
I think the only break he got is it happened a little bit later in the lap, so he didn't lose as much time getting back to pit lane, but it's cost him a victory, and he will be absolutely devastated. I mean, you could see in his face Loris Spinelli in recent rounds where they just kept missing, and to be so close, and he dropped the pace off. He did everything that he had to do, but it was just that monstrous stint that they were putting together, he and Ellis, where they just wringing every ounce of speed out of those Mercedes, that took its toll, and they've opened the door here for Michael Dinan and Robbie Foley to come through and break through with the Liquid Moly entry for Turner Motorsports.
Just under 4 minutes to go. Let's hear from Amanda.
Well, you could hear the cheers from Turner when they found out that the leader in the race, Loris Spinelli, was coming into the pit lane to change that tire. And you are intently looking at something, Will Turner. What is that?
Yeah, so I'm watching the tire pressure on the left front because it seems like everybody's having some issues today. And you know, with 3 minutes to go, we've been at the other end of this too. Like, so you can't count any chickens, but we're keeping our fingers crossed, and hopefully we can bring it home.
Good luck.
Well, they've seen the other BMW of Auberlin come into pit lane, so it's not just Mercedes on the left front. Certainly we've seen a BMW with it as well.
I think Spinelli still came out in second place in the Pro class. So should something go wrong for the Turner team, I think, well, Now he continues to drop down the order, so we'll have to wait and see.
I think Spinelli is second.
Still second in pro.
Yeah,
okay.
I think he's still second in pro, so pretty crazy.
No kidding. Don't write your headline yet. That's for sure. Jan Haywen leading Colin Brown. The gap, half a second. Porsche to Mercedes. These are the top two in Pro-Am and the top two overall.
Colin keeps digging. He's not letting him go. Be a lap and a half to go here. Be tied to whether they'll get the white this time by, maybe not.
They're doing laps in the 145 range, and it will be close. We'll have to keep an eye on the clock. If it's projected that they should get around to complete another lap prior to time expiring, then white flag would not come out.
I think it is going to come out.
I think it will too.
It's good news for Halen, bad news for Colin.
Robbie Foley likes that news. Here we go. Yep. This will be the final lap at Watkins Glen. Race 7 of the season, and it's been a wild one. White flag waves for Jan Haywen. Colin Brown giving chase. It's still just a half a second between these two in the fight for the overall lead.
Kia's turn 1, nailing it. Does a nice job. Charles is like saying, move on. Let me focus here.
He's cheering his son-in-law through.
Yeah, Halen's so much experience, though. He's been here so many times. He will not be put off by the pressure from Brown behind.
Driver from Belgium came over to North America to chase an open-wheel dream, made it to IndyCar, and has found a home in sports car racing in subsequent years. George Kurtz, we saw him a moment ago. He's the co-driver to Colin Brown. He's watching. This one's in Colin's hands. Those two have been linked together for so many years now as co-drivers, as driver, coach, and student, and as friends as well.
Brown is
Colin
closer.
is closing.
He is very much closer. Looks to the inside. This is going to be a critical corner. Braking zone into the next two corners is really the final opportunities on this racetrack.
Last lap at Watkins Glen, and there is nothing between these two. Is Colin Brown close enough to make a lunge in the heel of the boot? Not this time. Jan Haywen staves off his attack for the moment. Haywen exiting the boot. Brown trying to get that launch off the corner. He does start to close in. Headed down to the high speed, high commitment, turn number 10. Haywen in the Porsche, Brown in the Mercedes, just one corner to go. Jan Haywen through turn 11, Brown is closing in. It'll be a drag race to the line for the win at Watkins Glen, and Jan Haywen gets it done. Wright Motorsports victorious at Watkins Glen.
Mega race. That was really cool. Great battle there. Two teams digging deep, and for Turner Motorsports, what a day.
Robbie Foley perseveres, survives, and Turner Motorsports picks up their first win of the season in SRO America competition. What a tremendous day for them. When their competition faltered, they get the job done. So it's Halen and Brown by less than 0.2 of a second. Cooper does get the first podium of the year for the real-time team. And here's the AM class winner, Charlie Scardina, finishing off the run for Triarci Competizione, brings it home in 10th place overall, just ahead of Bill Auberland. So let's see, where did Spinelli come out? 8th overall, but still does score second place points. Not sure that's going to mean a whole lot to them, but their rivals for the title, the two K-Pax cars, both with major issues, finishing 4th and 5th respectively, the 1 car and the 3 car. Well down the order due to misfortune early in the running.
I think the 3 car did enough laps to get score points. They should be on 70% there. But yeah, wow. Crazy day. I tell you what I'm excited about is real time getting that podium run there for Cooper. Looking at his lap times, it's only 0.8 off the best of the day, and that's a lot closer than they've been in recent races, so that's a good rebound for that group.
Yeah, they made some progress. CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race to Philip Ellis for Windward Racing. He gave it his all. to chase down Loris Spinelli, and here are these two. They know what a duel they had going until tire problems for both of those cars cost them a chance at victory.
Wow. And we've talked about it many times today. Both of these groups have just had gut-wrenching blows delivered to them in the last couple of months, and the hits keep coming.
If they didn't have bad luck, they'd have no luck at all, as the saying goes. That is true of Windward Racing across multiple championships, sadly, this year. Certainly true for U.S. Racetronics here today. The good news, I suppose, is you get to do it again tomorrow, and especially for U.S. Racetronics, starting on the overall pole. We know what kind of pace Spinelli has. If he can do that in clear air, build a bit of a gap, and maybe you can manage that to the end, but at any rate, we know these 90-minute races, it's a long way. And they know just how hard it is after coming up short once again. What a good duel those two had. Jan Halen and Colin Brown, two of the very best.
Yeah, that was really a good dice as well. Nice job by Jan there, hanging on. It's a great rebound for that group. As we said, difficulties at NOLA, bounced back nicely at the last round of the championship at VIR. A couple of solid runs there, finishing second and fourth, and back in victory lane.
Oh, wow. I think I saw on the lips of Jan Halen. Great stuff. What a great drive he had to fend off the hard-charging Colin Brown. Colin ran him down in that stint, but Jan did not crack.
He didn't. Just evenly matched. Like the two Mercedes that ran at the front in the Pro class, just blow for blow. Kept trading fastest laps, but ultimately Jan Halen and Charlie Luck finish on top.
Provisional results from race 1 of the weekend here at Watkins Glen. Pro-Am 1 and 2. Don't see that very often in this championship. Charlie Luck and Jan Halen get the job done by less than 0.2 of a second over George Kurtz and Colin Brown. Michael Dinan and Robbie Foley, third overall, and a long-awaited win in the Pro class here this season. Vogel and Cooper from 17th on the grid. They bring it home fourth. What a day for real time.
Massive day. That'll be a big boost of confidence for that whole group. I thought Aaron drove tremendously, and Michael had a fierce battle there, going with Oberlin, kept it clean, kept the tires underneath the race car, and had some really strong laps there at the end of the day.
Further down the order, another good result for DXDT Racing, with Dirk Muller and Brian Sellers bringing home the 63 and the 08 in 5th and 6th, respectively. And Ryan Dial, another strong effort from Triarci a little bit further down the order. I believe Amanda is standing by with our overall race winners.
Well, Jan, I'm not sure that your father-in-law, Charlie, was breathing on that last lap as he was willing you to that checkered flag in the pit box. But when you go back to this race, there were tire issues abound. What in the Porsche knew that you could get this to the checkered flag?
Well, I was hearing the engineer, Bobby. He was on the radio, and I could hear, from the spotter and Bobby that there was cars left and right with tire issues. So definitely try to take that into account as much as I could with Colin behind me. So it was just a fun race, the way it should be, with a lot of pressure from behind. And, everybody did a good job. Charlie did a really good first stint, and it feels good to be back on the top step of the podium.
Well, Charlie, as you kicked off this effort alongside Jan Halen this season, could you have imagined an overall win being part of that?
Well, we're capable of this. Yeah. So we just need more of them. You know what I mean? We're going to fight back incredibly hard.
Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Some
Pretty
emotion
emotional there, yeah.
Wow.
That's what it's all about, though.
Mm-hmm.
Special.
Well, and again, to share it amongst family, father-in-law and son-in-law, very, very cool stuff. And not just to get the win, but the overall win is extra special.
It truly is, and you're going to have memories of these days for a long, long time. For Charlie to be doing it at this level, coming off a championship season last year in GT America, and now moving up to this Pro-Am level, that's a big step. But we saw it last year in some of his performances. He wasn't intimidated, had great pace, and with a team like they have behind them, it's anything is possible, as he said.
In many ways, it was an unlikely win in the Pro class for Turner Motorsport, but Michael Dinan was his star early on, and Robbie Foley got the job done late in the race. Amanda is with the Turner boys.
Well, Robbie, the guys just called it maybe an unlikely win, but when you heard the news that Loris Spinelli had issue, what was your reaction?
In the moment, you're just trying to be calm and, just do your job for the last couple laps. We had some vibrations in the car, too, that we're building, so I was a little bit worried because a couple cars had some issues with tires. So I just backed it down and tried to stay off the curbs and just be smart and bring it home. We didn't have the ultimate pace today, but Michael did a great job to mix it up at the start like he always does, which gave them a hard time, kept them behind for a while. So, yeah, it was a great race. Great to get our first M4 win in this series. So we're loving it. Awesome.
Well, as Robbie said, you had an excellent stint yourself, Michael, and it's your first time on the top step since Road America in this series, in the new car here in this series. Why are these moments worth fighting for?
Yeah, definitely wasn't an easy day for us in my opening stint. I thought we were going to be fighting for the win. Things didn't exactly go our way, but fortunately we had some luck today, and we're on the top step, which is nice. First win for me with the M4, and really loving the new car from BMW, and it's great to win here at Watkins Glen in my home state and one of my favorite tracks.
Can you tell us about the incident?
Yeah, I was on the outside at the top of the S's, and there was a gap on the inside. I moved over to take that gap, and Beretta closed the gap reactively. It was quite a dangerous move on his part. We were going around the 150 miles an hour, forced me into the grass. I stayed there. It was my corner heading into the bus stop in my mind. I had the outside at a previous restart. I conceded to him. However, he didn't leave me the space for the corner, forced me off. We had contact. In my mind, just pretty unnecessary aggression and, dangerous driving. But it is what it is, and I guess everything worked out for us at the end. So,
congratulations, guys.
Interesting to hear Michael's side of the story, and ultimately he identified the same thing you did, Calvin, that move on the straightaway approaching the bus stop. That perhaps is what drew the attention of the stewards.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, once they got into the corners, you're side by side at those sort of speeds, anything can happen. So there's a little touch there, and Michael went for a bit of a ride. But I would think, we'll try and get clarification tonight from the drivers' stewards, I would think it was the initial move with Beretta forcing him in the grass there at high speed.
Well, they did persevere. Tynan did keep it pointed in the right direction, more or less. Did have an interesting trip through the grass, but kept the car on the track beyond that and was able to prevent any damage, and they were there to take advantage. But how about some highlights of this race? And keep an eye on the Turner BMW, because at the start, Michael Tynan was absolutely the star of the show.
Yeah, he really was. Got a monster run up through the S's, made some moves early, and we've seen it so many times this year. Cuts across Akakani there and slides that BMW into P2 early.
Yeah, he did. He jumped up 3 spots in, the first 4 corners on the racetrack. Just remarkable stuff. Here's a scary moment as Chandler Hull approached the ailing K-Pax car of Misha Goikberg. Some kind of throttle-related issue. You could see that car really struggling. Ultimately cost them any chance for a good result. This was a great duel between Russell Ward and Stephen Agakani, and it lasted several corners.
Yeah, it's really nice to see these 2 young American drivers going hard at it. Then Chandler Hull had his issues with the body work. They tried to tape it down and to come back down pit lane. This was a spirited battle as well here at the end.
Yeah, it was, no doubt about that. It was Aaron Vogel and David Askew at this stage, ex-teammates going back to last season. And this was the move that ultimately got the penalty for the K-Pax car, which was compounded by the fact that it was supposed to be a stop and hold. They did a drive-through instead, had to come back to serve the penalty, then another pit stop in order to do the full service on that car, and their 10-race, 90-minute race win streak is done. This was a big moment late in the race as Loris Spinelli had a tire issue coming to the end, but at the end it was Wright Motorsports persevering. Jan Hagelin, Charlie Luck winning in Pro-Am and overall in race 1 of the weekend at Watkins Glen. Podium celebrations are upcoming, so stick with us for that. What a great race, though, it was, and just remarkable how much could be packed into a 90-minute window.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big commitment racetrack, right? We talk about the energy levels that are developed through the tires because of the big grip that you have here, the high-speed, heavy-loaded, constant radius corners, and here we see how the championship points are laying out.
Yeah, so Andrea Caldarelli standing alone at the top there still, despite the disappointment today with 162 points. Jordan Pepper really couldn't make any inroads because they had their own miscues. Beretta down in third. Spinelli and Agakani able to jump up a little bit, get somewhat closer to the guys they're chasing, the K-Pax drivers. They sit fourth. Goikberg fifth. Dynan and Foldy with the win. That brings them into that conversation, at least for third, looking towards the second half of the season now at this stage. And then you look further down the order and you'll find the cars that have not run an entire season to this point, with Philip Ellis and Russell Ward for Windward and Giacomo Altoe, who started in the Pro class, moved to Pro-Am, and in fact was not here this weekend at all. So those are the GT3 Pro driver points leaving round 7 of this 13-race championship. Keep in mind the Indianapolis 8-hour is a full points paying, double points paying event, and it will be paying points at the full 8-hour distance later on this year as we close out the season. And with that, we close out our coverage of round 7 of the championship. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back with us tomorrow for race 2 for Fanatec GT, 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon from right here in Watkins Glen.